The North American Caribbean Training Method was started earlier this year in 2020. And the purpose of the program is to give Caribbean coaches in the United States and Canada an opportunity to come together, train, and work with players.
We are going to spread this throughout the United States. This has been a dream of coaches of Caribbean descent in America for a very, very long time. And we have now to work and to get these kids to a different level.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Black Soccer Membership Association podcast. My name is Justin Reed. I am going to be your host today, and I've got a special guest, Ashton Baptiste. He is out of Orlando, Florida, and our topic of discussion today is going to be about building a club, building tournaments, building organizations, and Ashton also has a passion for helping the Caribbean Federation. So it's important that we have that discussion as well. But before we get started, if everyone can just click the subscribe button, you can also click the notification button, you can click the like button, and then also the share button. That'll help us to keep our podcast going. As you all know, this is a podcast for Black soccer coaches, administrators, players, and referees. So I want to thank Ashton for coming on to the show today. Ashton, how's everything going?
Going well. Thank you for inviting me onto the show today, Justin. It's my pleasure to be here and share whatever knowledge I can with the rest of the coaches and administrators.
Fantastic, man. So Ashton, do you mind telling our viewers a little bit more about yourself, how you got involved with soccer, how you actually ended up in Orlando?
Originally, I'm from Trinidad, of course, but came to the New York area and then moved to Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
But went to school in Philly, high school and middle school, all those things. And once I graduated, I went to Rutgers and played for Rutgers along with some well-known other Trinidad players, Richie Peters, Rudy Williams, Cubby Jones, people like that, Wimbo. Just trying to come off the top of my head. So yeah, I mean, to this day, Rudy and I still talk. Famous soccer player from Tranquil, well known in that era of the Tranquil heydays, the rivalry between Tranquil and Belmont. So yeah, and from there, my parents moved to Orlando, and they started having health issues, and I was constantly flying down here, and so I decided I need to be closer to my parents since I don't have any brothers or sisters. So that's how I ended up here in Orlando.
Okay. So how was the transition leaving from Trinidad and Tobago and coming to the US in terms of like coaching and playing experience?
Well, I was very young then, so I was just interested in playing. And like I said, played for Rutgers, played for some local, what would you call now, like semi-pro teams in Philadelphia, things like that. But at an early age, I was recognized by the older players, and I was actually playing men's league when I was like 16, 17. So before I got into college, I was already playing with grown men. So that transition, excuse me, from high school to college was not, I didn't feel any pressure or nervousness or anything in doing so. Like I said, so I didn't even think about coaching. I formed two teams up there in Philadelphia, with Richard Chinapoo's cousin, Whitney Keeler, and we formed a team up there, Trinidad and Tobago Football Club, and we did very well. Our nickname was the Strikers, and we did very well. And that lasted about 2 years, and then people moved away and things like that, and it kind of like just fell apart. And I moved down here, so that's kind of like was my football transition coming down here. I met through football again different people out of New York, DC area that knew me as a player, and they're like, oh, should get into other aspects of the game, and still didn't take it seriously. And I end up coaching a private high school here in Orlando, First Baptist, TFA, the First Baptist Academy. And there I met a parent, and the parent's like, oh, why don't you go get your coaching course? I was like, coaching course? What are you talking about? Like, yeah, get your coaching license. I mean, that's how far I was removed from the whole understanding of what it's like to be a coach and what you need. You know the game you coach. And there's still a lot of people feel that way, that I used to play the game at a high level, so therefore I can go out and coach. I mean,
right.
By now all of us well know.
Do you think that's the case? Like, how important is it to get like your coaching licenses? And
as a player, you see the game from a different perspective. As a coach, you see in the game from a different perspective. And the player is, I'm seeing what's in front of me, what's my role, what's my duties, what's, what I need to do within the team. As a coach, you have to understand what your team is doing, and you have to try to figure out what the other team is doing. It's more like a chess match. So you're watching the whole board instead of being a piece on the chessboard.
Right.
In simple terms, that's the difference between the two, and as we know in international play, there's been great players who try to be coaches, and that didn't work out too well for them. Not calling any names or name dropping, but yeah. So that was my transition or introduction, and still was like, whatever. I know the game. But when I took the course, with an open mind. And even though there's some players who went and take the course, they're taking the course like they can't teach me anything. I'm just here to get this piece of paper, and I'm gonna jump back in and do whatever I want. I have seen that as well. And if people are honest with themselves, I'm sure they know people who handled the coaching courses like that. Myself, I looked at the coaching courses as an extension to the point now where I had some younger players, like 16, 17, and I forced them to take a coaching course. And after they came back from the coaching course, their whole attitude towards the game, attitude towards practice, how they viewed the game, they started communicating more on the field with their teammates, because now they're seeing the game not just as a player, but how a coach sees, or how a coach will look at a game. So they became my player coaches on the field, and they were usually my captains of the team, because they can translate what I'm saying or what I want from the team and keep that going in the game without me standing on the sidelines yelling and screaming and all that sort of stuff that you see sometimes with coaches.
Right. So that's interesting that you say that, Ashton. So seeing that you have experience in Trinidad and Tobago, and I know you're still very much involved in terms of coaching and going down there, what would you take from what you've learned here in the U.S. to help the Caribbean in terms of player development and coaching?
Well, it's a system. Before you even get to coaching, it's a system. You have to have a system in place. And if you look at any successful organization, let's go broad as that, there's a system in place. In other words, you have the workers, you have the supervisor, you have the manager. Like they say in coaching, it has to be a progression. And in the Caribbean, there's no progression per se in most of the Caribbean countries. And I just don't want to just limit it to Trinidad and Tobago. We are talking about the Caribbean.
Right.
So when you go any state in America, you will find a youth league with different levels in the youth league. When I mean different levels, like divisions, Division 4, Division 3, Division 1, and you go up to elite, whatever those elite might be, MPL, FPL, FSPL, whatever, ECNL, and then you have the professional academies that they're calling now MLS Next. But don't care what name you want to put on it, there are a progression from simple to complex, like they say in coaching. There's a progression of teaching the sport, teaching the game, all aspects of that, psychological, physical, nutrition. There's a step, you know what I'm saying? I don't see that much of that happening in the Caribbean. It's not constant across the board. Let me just put it like that. Maybe there are some Caribbean countries that do it, but it's not a constant thing across the board like it is in the US and England and all those other countries,
Right. So do you think in terms of developing the system, should that kind of be a one size fit all? Should the Caribbean all come together and say, hey, let's put together a template and let's all follow this as associations?
I wouldn't say a one size fits all, but like school, even in Trinidad, you have your private school, and from private school, you go to primary school, and primary school, you go sit your common entrance, and you go to secondary school or college or whatever, and then you go to UE. That's kind of like the progression in school. So if we have this in every aspect of life, how come we don't have that in the football arena or in the sports arena in the Caribbean? Why do runners, other than Jamaica, have to come to the US to train to run?
Right.
Swimmers, this, that, and the why can't they train in their respective countries? Why isn't the government and the Football Association, since we are speaking about soccer, the football associations working in conjunction with the schools, with the government to promote this? I used national, but this year, of course, all that got shut down. Right. So for instance, you're giving teams exposure to something like Disney International, which I used to deem it like a mini World Cup, because you're meeting teams and players from different countries there, Panama, Brazil, Guatemala. This is a tournament that I've took many of my teams to, and the players got to meet players from different countries. We're here in Florida. Everybody comes to Florida because of Disney and Universal and all these things. So we're fortunate that people come to us. But there's a lot of people in Florida, just like in the Caribbean, stuff is coming to them, but they're not taking advantage of it.
I see.
There's Jamaican coaches here that don't work with the FA, and the FA doesn't work with them. Why? There's coaches here in Trinidad in colleges and different aspects of football life that the TTFA could connect with to help them.
So I mean,
and the people here are willing to help. Excuse me?
No, I was going to ask you. So what do you think is the problem? Is it a lack of efficiency, lack of organization, egos? Like, what's the issue? Like, why is this?
I think it's all of, I believe it's all the above, depending on who the administrators are, or they say the party that's running, that's in there at the moment. It's all the above. But let's just change direction now and let's talk about Trinidad. Trinidad, for instance, and I might get in trouble for this, but whatever. Trinidad is, for instance, it's let's be real. And even the people that empower, let's be real. Okay? The people who were there in the 80s are the same people are there now. And everybody's screaming for change. The public is screaming for change. The next man coming in and screaming for change. But it's the same people that's being recycled, and you want change. Einstein said, hey, insanity is doing the same thing over and over, and you expect change.
Right.
You can't get change. You're using green paint, and the paintbrush is in green, and you're painting the room green, and you say, no, I don't like that color. Let's change it to blue. But nobody went and got a bucket, a pan of blue paint, or even cleaned the brush.
Right.
They're taking, you know what I mean? So just from a logical point of view, I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. And then you have people who was born and raised in Trinidad, went to school in Trinidad, played intercall in some cases, like all that played professionally in the professional league, but for some reason or another, they left Trinidad and they're now living in the United States. And to me, those people are shunned upon when they are trying to reach out to help their country that they love from the heart. Some of the monies that they are paying the coaches, some of these guys will do it for half.
Right.
I've had discussions where people will say, hey, just pay my flight down, pay my flight back up when I have to leave, and just provide some housing, and I'll go down there and coach.
Right. So, I mean, what do you think it is? I mean, look at like Fenwick, for example, Terry Fenwick. I believe last I heard his agreement was something like 3 years, $2 million. I don't know how true that is. And of course, there's no transparency in the TTFA, so we have really no idea what's going on. What is it about the Caribbean that seems to idolize like British coaches? And British coaches, to me, they aren't any good, right? They haven't even won like the Premier League. They've never won the Premier League.
Well,
no British coaches won the Premier League. So what is it with the Caribbean? Like, why do they want, Europeans to come on over there and do work that Trinidadians can do, or Trinidadians living in the United States can do?
Well, I'll have to go back to Bob Marley. Once we free ourselves from mental slavery, no one but ourselves can free our minds.
That's
See
true.
what I'm saying?
Right.
So is that mental slavery a lot of us are in, and some of us don't even realize we're in that mental slavery, because I read stuff on the internet, and I mean, I'm a factual person. I deal with facts, okay? So you're preparing to qualify for the World Cup. You picked a team with pickup players, so there's no chemistry, number one, and the youngest player on the team was 14 years old. And you have two guys on the team that's 34. Of course they're going to beat up on them. You know what I mean? At my age, I go out there and I play a high school team, and I get some coaches that I know that's around my age, maybe in their 40s and stuff. We could go out there and beat up on those high school players. Not because we're faster and all that, but we know the game, we understand the game, and we'll use our experience on them and beat them mercifully. I should say unmercifully.
Right.
But so you're in Trinidad. You have other countries in South America or clubs that you can go to and play them and get better. I'll just use the word ready, better ready to play, like get the chemistry, work out the kinks, because you're playing against more experienced players who are playing in tougher leagues and things like that. You have Brazil, Argentina, Peru, Venezuela. You have all these teams out there. But then on the youth side, you had a tournament for the youth, and Venezuela and Costa Rica and Honduras and all these teams came and played there. So why are you not getting those same teams to come back now or go to their countries and play them?
Right.
I don't understand that.
Right.
You know what I mean? History. Okay, Terry Fenwick. Okay, great. Good. Okay, you're English, all that, great. But what is your resume saying about your coaching? And if you're going to give a Terry Fenwick a chance, why not? I'm a big one. He's the coach at Toronto FC. So had a successful career there. Last year, his new team he's coaching for, they came in third in the league. This year, they went to finals. They lost in the finals, but they went to finals.
Which coach is
If you
this?
look at his tenure with TTFA.
Oh, no,
Stephen Hart.
Stephen Hart, yeah, okay.
Yes. Yeah. So if you're looking at resume to resume, who has the more impressive resume?
Right.
Who is the real Trini? Not somebody who grew up in Trinidad. I don't have anything against foreign coaches, but if you look around the world, it's usually somebody from that country that's coaching that national team. I'm just saying. No, is it the norm? No, but more than so, yeah. When it comes to England, it's an English coach. When it comes to Germany, it's a German. Because you need to understand, I don't care if you live in Trinidad for 50 years. You're not a Trinidad. You're not going to understand fully the culture of the people because you didn't grow up in that culture.
That's true.
You know,
Right. Right.
I've
It
been
doesn't
living in
matter if you're
America for
married to a Trinidadian.
no,
It
no, no,
doesn't
no,
mean
no, no,
so.
no, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no,
Mhm.
no, no. You know, it doesn't happen. I know Trinidadians who live in New York, who had kids in New York. They are more Trini than American
Right.
because they grew up with that Trini culture. So unless you grew up with that culture,
Mm-hmm.
you can't tell me because I lived in Trini for 20 years and my wife is Trini, I'm Trini.
Right. Right.
Come on.
You'll never be able to understand. Yeah. And
Come on.
and it's a shame that these associations don't see that. That is the biggest thing. And I think that's the biggest disappointment that I personally had with the previous administration. You know, they ended up bringing this guy in, Fenwick, when they had a lot better options, I thought. So,
Like like I said, a good friend of mine, Hugh Menzies,
mm-hmm.
I thought he would have been a good fit for the women's team because of experience. What he just recently did with the Jamaica women's team
Right.
before they let him go. Again, here we go, his own country. He did great things, got them to France on a shoestring budget.
Scored a
You know,
goal
he
out
did a
of,
lot.
yeah.
Yeah, you know,
Goal.
thanks to Sadell Marley
Yeah.
that he reached out to and others, I'm
Yeah.
sure, that helped fund that thing. It wasn't the Jamaica FA,
Nope.
okay, but yet still they got credit for it. So it's time for the whole Caribbean to wake up. It's
Mhm.
time for Trinidad and Tobago to wake up.
Mhm.
Stop the nonsense. They know better. So
Mhm.
if you know better, let's do better.
Exactly.
Okay, and if you go back in time to the success of Trinidad football, who were the coaches? Who were the coaches at that point in time?
Right. They're
No,
from
the
Trinidad and Tobago.
65, the 65 when Trinidad played Suriname at Oval. I was born in 61. So I go back and do my research as a coach. I want to learn from the past, the present, and I want to try to anticipate what may happen in the future.
Mhm.
And I believe in the Caribbean, people just sit in their little comfort zone, in their little comfort chair, and they don't step outside the box
No.
to see what's going on in the rest of the world, what's going on with football. So you're in a sport, you're in a market, you're in a culture, but you're not living that culture. So it comes back to like Fenwick, you're not living the culture. Sorry, Terry, you're not.
You're not. Right.
You're not Trini. You
You'll
know,
never get it. You'll
you're not
never get it.
Trini.
Right.
I'm sorry.
That's
You
true.
know, you might have good intentions or whatever, but you cannot stand up in front of people and say you're Trini because you live there and you have a Trini. You're not Trini, dude.
Hmm.
You're not Trini.
And he also has a little arrogance about him for being from England. You know, he thinks that he knows it all. You know, but that's another topic
Well,
for another
that's
day.
another topic for another day. Yeah, but you
Yeah.
know, it's like football is football is football, and I don't understand egos. I mean, I've coached youth soccer here, and I see it here with people from different countries because they think, you know, Brazil and England thinks they know everything about football, and no other country in the world does. They have the education and all the experience in football.
Mhm.
And again, maybe that it was that way once upon a time. But in modern times, Brazil hasn't been doing too well.
No, they haven't.
Modern times, England hasn't been doing too well. You know what I mean? And even like you said, in their own league, there's not a bunch of English coaches coaching English teams in the English league.
No,
So
no.
the whole arrogance, I don't know where that comes from. And I have English coaches that are good friends and colleagues, and I coach with them. You know, people, you know, Rollins University here. I know coaches there. You know, they're English. You know, Orlando City. I know coaches there. You know, English. You know, so I mean, no coaches from Venezuela, no coaches from Argentina, Colombia, but you know, you have some people come from these countries and they have this arrogance, and I'm like, it's an ever evolving game, and
Yeah.
if you don't stay up with the times and the new style of coaching and the new systems and things like this, how can you help the youth? How can you have development when you yourself are not even aware of what's going on?
That's true. Mm-hmm.
You ask them, when did you go and take a continuous education course? When's the last time you went to United Soccer Coaches, the old NSCAA convention, to see and learn and rub elbows with people out there who are doing it at the high level.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of them haven't.
They haven't.
A lot of them haven't.
You're right.
So if you have people like Myron Garnes, an Ashton Baptiste, a Rudy Williams, a Brett Fleming, Ivan Sampson, you know, all these guys are willing to come back and give, and you're like slapping your hands on, we got this. We don't need your help. We okay.
Mm-hmm.
Can I tell you a true story?
Go ahead.
That happened to me?
Mm-hmm.
I went to Trinidad on vacation, all alone around football. So of course I connect with all my football buddies. Jamal Shabazz was coaching the women's team at the time. Marlon Charles was the assistant. Knew both of them. Conversations upon conversations. So when I came into the country, of course I connected, and they're like, "Oh man, that's great, you know, but we got to get together. You got to come and see the team train." And so I went with Jamal to one of the training sessions. It was up there in Couva, I think, Manny Ranjan Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm there. And again, I just came to observe. You know, I'm on vacation. Yeah, I like football, but I'm not trying to be all involved like that. So next thing, Jamal's like, "Oh, you got to come out and do a session." I'm like, "What? No, man, I'm good. I'm here to chill. I'm here to just watch." And Stern John and Dennis Lawrence was at the other end with the men's team. They came out later on the field. So I'm there anyway. They convinced me to do something, to do a little session. So he gave me all the defenders, and he told me just work on defensive shape, on the defensive side, and then playing out to the back once they win the ball in transition. So did my thing. He's watching and he's happy, and he kind of left me alone to do my thing. The president of Trinidad and Tobago comes out of the stands, comes down on the field, sees me coaching, don't know me from a can of paint, never introduces himself, never asks any question. The first thing out of his mouth was, "Hey, I hope that man ain't looking for no money, you know, because I ain't no money to give him, you know." And again, I'm doing this from the heart,
Right.
with my boys who asked me to just give the players a different view from a Trinidadian that's outside the country, to show them, to kind of reconfirm, like, okay, what we're teaching, this is what's going out there, because here's a guy from outside is coming and teaching you this and showing you this, and you know, which I do myself from time to, you know it too, when you came down to visit in Florida, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Hey, take the team. I'm not insecure like that. I want the players to get different views and opinions of what's going on, because that's just solidifies yourself with your team." It's like, okay, Coach Justin, yeah, 3 other coaches came. They're all saying the same thing, Coach Justin. Let me pay more attention to what Coach Justin is saying, you know. But anyway, so I overheard him, and then after the session, I asked, you know, who was that and what did he say? And he told me, "Well, that's the president of the FA at the time." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I don't care." John Williams, that's the man's name.
David Williams. We all know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
A nightmare.
and it just shocked me that here I am, I'm giving of myself. I never asked for no money. I was never looking for. Matter of fact, I didn't even want to coach on that day, but I did anyway, and I coached just like I was getting paid to do it or whatever, because again, you that, and I had to win over the players too, because they were looking like, "Who is this guy? I don't know him. You know, he doesn't have a big name in Trinidad now or whatever." But being a coach, once I stopped everything, I had a conversation with them. They saw where I'm coming from. And by the end of the session, when they brought the defense and the offense together, which old school Trinidad used to say, when we start playing backs and forwards,
Mm-hmm.
they understood, because nobody got past them.
Mm-hmm.
On that session, they were playing tough defense, cutting off spaces, cutting off angles, you know, slowing up the ball, putting is about. So they were able to take the session and translate it into the expanded game with the offensive team.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? And Jamal and Marlon was pleased, and you know what the girls did in just that one session.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the president coming talking about, "Hey, I hope that man ain't looking for no money, you know, boy, because I have no money to get."
That's ungrateful.
You know?
That's
So,
ungrateful, and unfortunately, that just happens way too often in the Caribbean.
way too often.
It's just
way
like
too
lack
often.
of intervention from allowing folks who come abroad to the US to learn. You've got your coaching education licenses, you've taken your courses. Well, you know, accept that. Accept the fact that you're coming down to the island to bring a different voice, a different expertise. You know, unfortunately,
Yeah,
that goes back to mindset though. And unfortunately, that happens in the
yeah,
Caribbean again way too often. It's a terrible mindset.
way too often,
Yeah.
way too often. But here's the funny part about it. They'll take a child, a kid, whatever, from Trinidad, give them a government scholarship to come to America, go to the university, go to college, get educated, whatever it is, medicine, science, whatever, engineering, accept them or have them sign a contract where they have to come back and work for the Trinidad government for 2, 3 years, whatever that thing is, and accept them and accept their education, accept their experience and their knowledge, and use that to the benefit of the country. So what's the difference between a coach leaving, whatever the reason is, coming to America or England or whatever part of the world, picking up some knowledge, getting his license or her license, and then willing to go back to share that common experience and knowledge about the game, about organizing the whole football scenario in Trinidad, about taking a full size field and building fields or marking the field, going sideline to sideline to make 2 9v9 fields to coach and have games with youth players. Why isn't the savannah in Port of Spain utilized more for training youth soccer by building fields? You know, Justin, there's nowhere in America you would have a park that's 3 miles all the way around
No.
not being utilized for some sport.
In the middle of a city.
Not just grown
In the
people
middle
playing
of-
small goal.
Yeah.
In the middle, like you said, in the capital of Trinidad, and that's not being utilized. There's nowhere in the world that would happen.
Yeah, but Carnival is being
But it
utilized.
happens in Trinidad.
That's the only time is during Carnival you see people in the savannah, you know, getting, you know, activity, you know. So yeah, it doesn't make.
Let me tell you something.
Doesn't make.
Let me tell you what when it comes to whining, rum, and music and soca, they will party anywhere. They'll party in a church parking lot in Trinidad.
Mm-hmm.
But then that goes to show priorities. Then just think about your youth days, my youth days, and others' youth days in Trinidad. You think they didn't have the crime rate wasn't as it is now because youths had something to do. What do youths do now in Trinidad? What do? Do they have intercal? Yeah. Is it at the same level and excitement as it was back in the day? Hell no.
No, not at
I
all.
remember when teams won, it's like carnival. It's steel band and rhythm section in the street and blockage and, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I remember about football. Primary school was same thing. Primary school football was big. Crowds, hundreds of people going to primary school. That now.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. There's nothing.
Come on. Somebody got to wake up. Somebody got to wake up and see that what's going on is not working. The system is not working.
Yeah.
The federation is not working. The federation doesn't even want to work with people in Trinidad. The Ministry of Sport, and to me, the Ministry of Sport and the federation should have some working, can't even find the right word now, but in different projects, yeah, they should have a relationship on certain projects that they can work together, not for TTFA, not for the government, but for the whole of Trinidad, which means the citizens of Trinidad, which means the youths of Trinidad.
Right.
Okay? You don't want the youths to go around, shoot guns, rob people, do this and do. What are you giving them as an alternate?
It's true. Right.
Where's the alternate?
Right.
If a kid goes to the savannah, runs around the savannah or the sand track, if they ever put sand back, I think they started to. But When you run the Savannah in my day and you run the sand track and you go up Chancellor Hill and you come back, you only have strength to go home. You don't have strength to go home, take a shower, and go back out to the street to rob nobody or do anything.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Sorry about that. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's the same here in Florida. When you look at middle school, in the hood, they have no fields, no athletic support. When you go in the more prestigious areas, the middle school, even some of the elementary schools, there's fields, there's a track. Okay, so it's not to say white kids, black kids, Hispanic kids, or whatever is better or worse than each other. But when you give kids something to do after school or something to do in their free time, they can't be doing something else. You can't do, as a human being, you can't do two things at the same time.
True.
But if you don't give me something to do and somebody else is giving me something to do,
I'm going to do that.
you're not even giving me a choice. I want something to do. I'm going to go with that.
Right. There are no options. Yeah. In that case,
There's no options.
Right.
There's no options.
That's
You
true.
know what I mean? So that's, I mean, sorry to get all passionate like that, but,
But
I really care.
Yeah.
I really care about youths, not only in the Caribbean, but any youth that come into my presence. I care about them. I go out my way. I bend over backwards for them if they're passionate,
Right.
if they want it. Because
Right.
you do meet some youths that say they want it, but they don't want to put in the work for it. But
That's
if you
good.
wanted to put in the work, I'll work with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just want to blabber. There's players down in Trinidad that reach out to me, you know,
Mm-hmm.
especially two from Fatima that I met through Wayne Shepherd, bringing Fatima up to America on 2 different tours.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm close with Jalili White. These people have been doing this before, especially Jalili White. Why isn't he part of TTFA? He's been coaching youths for a long time. These are the
Too much of
questions
a threat.
I would like to ask.
He's looked at as too much of a threat, possibly because he's had success, and unfortunately,
Why is he a threat? Why is he a threat?
that's a
He
question
has
for
been
the-
doing on his own
Okay.
the thing in his little coaching school in the Savannah. He, before anybody else that I am aware of, bringing youths and giving them the experience at Disney, at the Disney International in July. He can't afford to come every year, but he comes every other year. Okay?
Mhm.
Why isn't that government supported? Why doesn't TTFA support that? This is the projects I'm talking about, where TTFA and the Ministry of Sports can get together. And let's say you have a primary school league. You say, hey, the school that wins the league, you're going to go to Disney.
Mhm.
We're going to pay for you. Caribbean Airlines, get involved, get sponsors involved. Hey, this is for the youths. You guys have an airline? We need a flight for these guys, round trip, to get them up to Florida. There's hotels, there's American hotels in Trinidad. Get with those hotels and say, hey,
Right.
you're in our country doing business. We want a payback. We want you to put these kids up in rooms. You think they won't do that? What's it going to cost them? And they get their name advertised for that.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
ask me, what is needed? That's the stuff we needed. Working more to people, sponsors, working more with coaches in and outside of Trinidad and Tobago
Mhm.
that have the contacts. You know, if one of the coaches, I want to get this kid in college. There's tons of Trinidadians that's coaching in colleges.
Yeah.
Why not just simply reach out to them? No, you're choosing to go the long way. You know, apply and send video with this, where a man could just say, hey, so-and-so, I have a player. Oh yeah, okay, Ashton, you know that player? Yeah. What do you think about? Yeah, he's good. I think he's good enough. All right, I'll give him a look. Give him my number. Now you're talking directly. You skipping over all that red tape and hurdles.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, but that
So-
goes back to connecting with one another and interconnecting. And unfortunately, you know, Trinidad and Tobago is one of the countries that they're just so threatened by us being here in the US and Canada and the UK for whatever reason.
I don't understand.
It's pretty sickening.
I don't understand.
Yeah,
I need somebody. I need somebody to answer that. You maybe come on your podcast one day and answer that.
Yeah.
What is the issue? What is the problem?
Yeah.
You know, what is the problem? Because we're not. Some of us is not even trying to go back to Trinidad. You know, if we can come down, lend a hand, 6 months, whatever, you know.
Mhm.
But we have our families, we have our lives up here. So we're not really trying to relocate for no length of time. We might relocate for a period of time to work with the team or whatever, or help out in the back end with administration and setting stuff up or whatever. But every time somebody stretch out their hand, instead of we getting a handshake back, we get our hand slapped down.
That's true.
We're not interested.
That's true.
No, we got this,
Well, Ashton, I want to thank you. I mean, we could talk forever, about this.
Yeah, man.
And, I want to thank you for
man.
coming on to the show. Let's definitely do a part 2. I think as things continue in Trinidad and Tobago for the TTFA, I think we need to continue to bring this to light. And maybe we just have to continue drilling it in their heads that, look, you need to utilize the diaspora who's involved with football across the world.
Most definitely.
They are going to be of benefit to the TTFA. So that's.
And sorry we didn't get a chance to touch on the climate of football in Orlando and in Florida on this one, but maybe the next one.
Yeah. That'll be part 2, man.
Yeah.
All right. So Ashton,
you touched an emotion, man. With,
well, that's a passion.
Trinidad.
That's a passion. Yeah. And nobody could say that you're angry. That's not anger. That's passion. Nothing but passion and love for country. All right. So
yeah, definitely.
Cool, so I want to thank you again, Ashton, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Justin.
All right.
Yes, man. Thank you.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.